video I'm about to show you is a sickening example of bullying and harassment by a parking management company of a person who really didn't deserve it. Not only did they not deserve, ostensibly from the correspondence that she describes, the behavior that they showed, but their own so-called evidence seems to prove her point all along. So before I go on too much, let me show you the video, and I've got a few more thoughts about it. Listen to this.
I literally can't believe it. After 2 years, a court case against me has finally been dropped today. And I am honestly just so angry that it's taken this long. 2 years ago, I parked in a car park and I paid for the parking. 8 months later, I received a letter to say that I didn't pay for it. So I checked my account and I had paid for it. Like, there was proof of it, so I just ignored it. It was like a private one, so I thought, oh, they've just made a mistake. Anyway, I was then hounded with threatening letters, phone calls, basically saying that I had to prove it, so I had to send off evidence of my bank statements and things like that. And they basically said that my evidence wasn't good enough. So I provided a bank statement that showed that I had paid on the day to the parking company with the correct amount, but they said that because I couldn't prove which car park I had paid for, as in which one of their car parks I had paid for, then they were still going to take me to court over it, even though they knew that my car was in that car park, because obviously they're coming for me for this car parking charge, and I had a contactless payment, which meant I was there. I couldn't possibly be in another car park because you've got my car in that car park, so how could I pay for a different car park? But they said because my bank statement didn't prove which car park I paid for, they were still going to take me to court. Now, these phone calls and letters that I was receiving was asking me to pay a further £350. So for 2 years, I've had letters weekly, I've had daily phone calls of people pushing me to pay an extra 350 quid, even though I'd already paid for the parking. When I'd asked them if you would pay, on the phone, if you would pay through the 350 quid, even though you know for a fact that you've paid that parking and you've been able to prove it, and they weren't able to answer me. All they just kept doing was kept ringing and ringing and ringing for this extra money. And at points, I actually considered paying it because I just wanted it to stop. And I just wonder how many people have paid more money because they just want the phone calls and the legal letters and the court letters to stop coming through. So this morning when I woke up, my mum had sent me a message saying that the BBC News had done a story on parking companies going after people for parking fines. Now, I haven't seen it. She said, oh, you should ring up and tell them what's gone on. You never know. And I just think it's no coincidence then less than 2 hours later, I receive a email from their legal firm saying that the case has now been dropped. I literally have no words. So it's been 2 years and it's now all over. My partner says that I should do them for harassment because the emotional toll that has taken on me for the last 2 years has just been a lot. But I just don't want to deal with it anymore. So hold strong, peeps. If you know that you've paid for parking and you can prove that you've bloody paid for it, don't give in to these phone calls and these letters, because I don't know where they think they can get off trying to get people to pay obscene amounts of money through tactics like that.
And so I think that's utterly horrendous as a story. I will link her account in the description below. There is a follow-up to that. So go ahead, check out her account and see what else she has to say. Now, there's a number of things to unpack here. not only is the £350 that they wanted to charge excessive, the parking case with Beavis and Parking Eye in 2015 had a much lower sum that the court deemed reasonable, the Supreme Court deemed reasonable, but £350 right off the bat seems excessive, and so is not likely to be enforceable anyway. It depends on what other charges have gone back and forth, and they would have to justify those, but overall I think that's excessive anyway. But more to the point, it sounds like this car park management company manages multiple car parks in a very close proximity to each other. And so even if it were possible that she paid at the wrong terminal for a different car park, they must have been so close together that she believed it was the correct one and managed by the same people and so on. But even if she had paid at the wrong terminal, that, by the virtue of paying at the wrong terminal, would indicate that the signs are unclear and the positioning of the payment terminal is unclear and so on. But I don't believe that's the case. Even without looking at the documentation, I believe that it's more likely that she did pay at the correct terminal, because the argument they came back with was, just because you have a bank statement proving that you paid us doesn't prove which car park you paid for. I think that's utterly ridiculous, because if they have evidence that she's in one car park and that a payment was made at that particular time to that management company, even let's say that it was a administrative error, that it was paid for the wrong car park, albeit administered by the same company, let them sort that out, because she'd paid a fee for parking to the correct people anyway. So even if she was wrong as to which car park she paid for, there's no need for this to go to court. It's a waste of court's time. As you'll remember from a video I did a few days ago about a court case about parking, no less, whereby someone had stopped to make a phone call in the car park, and the judge said they hadn't parked, so the fee was not due and the parking charge wasn't due. In this case, different set of facts, but it'd be a broadly similar application, in that if she'd paid for the wrong car park, the court would say, well, she's paid you, the claimant, the fee for parking, just apply it to a different account. There's no need to come to court and argue over this, and certainly doesn't justify £350 of parking charge notice plus fees and everything else. So all that aside, there's no need to go to court. There's no way a claim like that is going to succeed. I don't believe that she paid the wrong car park terminal anyway, and if she did, on the balance of probabilities, it's more likely that it's confusing rather than she did it, certainly not deliberately and not carelessly. Obviously, she paid for it. She wouldn't want to be careless in the way that she paid for it. She wanted to pay for it, after all. What does alarm me is that she was at such a point where she considered paying this £350 because of the constant barrage of phone calls and letters and hounding and harassment. And it does amount to harassment if a company is persistently threatening you when they should really just tell you of the situation, tell you what they want to claim, give you a letter before action, and if you don't respond, take you to court, and that's it. Not phone call after phone call after phone call, letter after letter, and harassing and hounding people. You can see, the reason I played the full video is so that you can see just how upset she was over what is, in the grand scheme of things, a nominal amount. I know £350 is a lot of money, but when we talk in court cases, most of my cases are in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, and one or two cases I've dealt with in the millions. Now, £350 is not a huge sum of money when you're talking about court action. It is distinctively a small claim, which is not more than £10,000. But this sort of case should not go to court over such trivial nonsense by this parking company. If there were a mistake as to which car park she paid for, they should just sort it out. Not go to court and waste the court's time, certainly wasting lawyers' fees and everything else if they're trying to charge lawyers' fees on top of that. No doubt they always try to claim lawyers' fees on top of things like this, which is ridiculous because it's a small claim. And There is a narrow exception whereby if someone just ignores a claim, they can get costs against you under CPR 2714G. And if you just ignore a claim, you risk costs against you, which is why I always say don't ignore it. Lots of people say just ignore them. They have to take you to court and everything else, so just ignore them and it's not a problem. That's why I say don't ignore it, because they can get costs against you. So £350 can turn into £1,350 because they get costs of £1,000 or whatever. So don't ignore it, but don't pay it out of fear. And in cases like this, if you're being absolutely harassed by these companies and letters and threatening wording and so on, I would like you to send it to me. I will either use it as an example with your permission on these videos, or in some cases even write to them. I'd have to do that formally, etc. But these are situations that just shouldn't happen. And so, like I say, don't pay it if you've genuinely paid for your parking. Check thoroughly your documents to make sure that that's the case, but don't succumb to bullying. That's just not acceptable and it shouldn't happen. But I hope you found that interesting. Please do remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching.